make a loaf of sourdough at home. But before I start, I've made a resource down in the description below which will help you make the sourdough. So if you want, go check it out.
Like I'm sleeping, people say wake up and stop dreaming, and I ain't ever wanna open my eyes.
So we're starting off at 9 o'clock the day before, day 1. We're going to start off by feeding our sourdough starter with 80% hydration, which means you're going to feed it with 100 grams of flour and 80 grams of water. So firstly, you're going to need to take out some of your starter. Now you're going to add your water to your starter. We're going to add 80 grams of water using a measuring scale to measure out, to be precise. Next you want to put your flour in, so you're going to put 100 grams of flour. Now you're going to mix it until it's all incorporated. Once you've mixed all the flour and water into your sourdough starter, you're going to put your lid back on loosely, and you're going to put it back in the cupboard until the next day. So it's the next morning, day 2 of making the sourdough. So I'm just measuring out 490 grams of bread flour. You're going to measure your salt, and here I have my bread flour, and I've got my whole wheat flour. You're going to need your starter, which is nice and bubbly and active, as you can see from the bubbles. You're going to need your starter, which is nice and active because you fed it 12 hours before. You're going to need a thermometer, you're going to need some more equipment and a mixing bowl. So as you can see, the sourdough starter that we fed 12 hours prior with the 80% hydration is nice and bubbly, as you can see the bubbles. And if you smell it, it has a nice tangy sour smell to it, which will help the sourdough rise as a leavening agent and give it that nice sour taste. So we're going to measure out 310 grams of water. This water is water A. So it is 9 o'clock and we're going to start. Firstly, put 75 grams of mature starter into a nice big mixing bowl. Measure the temperature of your water. water into your sourdough starter. Using the claw shape of your hand, try and mix and dissolve the starter into your water. Put your flour in, and you're going to want to mix it into a shaggy dough. You don't want to mix it too much. Scrape down the sides with a bench scraper. And cover it with plastic wrap. So we're going to leave this to rest for 30 minutes to autolyse. Autolyse is the act of letting the water and flour incorporate and letting the flour be hydrated from the water. You are going to measure out 58 grams of water and 7 minutes. Once it has autolyse and rested for 30 minutes, you're going to take off the cover and you're going to sprinkle your salt in. And you're going to pour your 58 grams of water B, and using the claw kneading technique you're going to knead the dough until all the water is absorbed into the dough. After the water has been absorbed by the dough, you're going to use the rhubarb kneading method, which is essentially cupping the dough from the bottom and pulling it up and slap it back down and repeat until the dough is smooth. Once your dough is smooth, use the bench scraper to scrape the sides and scrape the dough out of the bowl onto a clean work surface. Now we're going to do a slap and fold. So essentially is you're going to lift up the dough and turn it 90 degrees and slap and fold over the dough. You're going to want to do this for about 3 to 4 minutes until the dough holds its shape, until there is gluten development and the dough is not sticky.
Once you finish with your slap and fold, put the dough back in the bowl and rest for 30 minutes. Once your dough has rested for 30 minutes, you're going to do your first fold. You're going to need a bowl of water. You're going to get your hands wet. You're going to fold the dough to the middle. And do that all around the dough. Now you finish your first fold, you're going to leave it for 30 minutes to rest and do that 3 more times. Now you're going to do your second fold, exact same thing. Get some water on your hands so the dough doesn't stick, and fold the dough to the middle. Again, rest for 30 minutes and repeat. Third fold, exactly the same. Rest for 30 minutes. Your last fold, fourth fold. After the last fold, you're going to leave your dough to rest for 4 hours for bulk fermentation. You can leave it in the cold oven. If you have a linen cloth, it will help your dough not stick to the bowl that you have. But if you don't have a linen cloth, then you're going to have to use lots of flour on your bowl so the dough does not stick overnight. You're going to want to put a lot of flour on your cloth so that the dough does not stick. Put your cloth in your bowl. And give it a little sprinkling of flour. After 4 hours of bulk fermentation, you can see the bubbles starting to form. There are lots of little bubbles, which means the sourdough is active and that it is ready to move on to the next phase. You can see on the top of the surface that there are lots of bubbles. You're going to want to have a flexible bench scraper, and you're going to slowly and carefully scrape out your dough after the bulk fermentation, not to deflate the dough. Once you've got your dough out of your bowl, you're gonna tighten your dough into a tight ball. So the way to tighten your ball is to use your bench scraper, scrape one side of the dough, pushing away from you, and when you get to the top, push it towards you. Do this until your dough has tightened. And cover it back with the bowl and leave it to rest for 30 minutes. Once your dough has rested for 30 minutes, you're gonna do the pre-shaping before you put it in the fridge overnight. So you're gonna carefully flip your dough onto a floured surface. And you're gonna stretch your dough from the bottom to the middle, the left to the middle, and the right to the middle. And lastly, from the top, pull it all the way back. Now you're gonna want to turn it 90 degrees. And you're gonna have to stitch your dough. So you're gonna get one corner of the dough, pull it, and take it to the other side, and do that with the other side, and you're gonna stitch all the way from the top to the bottom, making the dough quite tight. After you've done that, you're gonna roll your dough away from you and tuck it, shape it nicely. Do this motion until it's quite tight. Put a bit more flour. You're gonna want to put your dough seam side up into your floured bowl. You're gonna want to cover this bowl and put it in a Ziploc bag to prevent water loss. Now you're gonna leave your dough to rest for 16 hours in the fridge. Day 3. Put your Dutch oven in your oven and preheat them both to the highest setting, 240 Celsius, for at least 30 minutes. You're gonna want to get some parchment sheets, fold the corners, and cut them off. This will help you lower your dough into your Dutch oven without burning your fingers. Take your dough out of the fridge 5 minutes before your Dutch oven is ready. As you can see, the dough has risen and has doubled in size since yesterday. Now you're gonna flip your dough onto your parchment sheet and carefully peel back your cloth. You're going to get a sharp knife or a blade to help score your bread. So when you score your bread, you want to do it in a swift motion, and you want to slice it about 1 centimeter deep. You can decorate and score it however you want. Take your Dutch oven out of your oven, be careful it is hot, and and place it back in the oven with the lid on. Bake it for 25 minutes. Once the 25 minutes is up, turn down the oven to 210 Celsius and remove the lid. And continue baking for another 25 minutes with the lid off at 210 Celsius. After 10 minutes, you should be able to see the golden crust of the bread. If your oven is too hot, lower the temperature more to about 200 Celsius. Once your sourdough has done baking, leave it to rest for at least 1 hour or until it is cooled. Once your sourdough has cooled, knock the bottom of your bread and it should sound hollow. Once it's cool, you can cut it open. See the sourdough from inside. It should have constant sized holes. That is how you make a sourdough at home.